The world that shrinks each passing day into one big global village is driving more people from its villages to cities. Driven by market forces, cities are becoming epicenters of employment. And India, a country that has more than 1 billion people, has about 250 million who now live in cities. Experts predict that this number will increase, and 50% of the country's young population will migrate to urban centers by 2020 to carve out a living. Among those who graduate, with the conferring of a graduation degree comes a culmination of their education. For the vast majority, slipping out of their graduation gowns into career clothes the same week is fast becoming a reality, especially in today's market in India. And then for others with spending power, their college degree or diploma serves as a passport to pursue higher studies abroad. So, is this all that the education system is supposed to do? When and how are we fully educated? Is today's education system fulfilling its role, its obligations? Many will argue it is. That if one considers that the goal of education is only to help eke out a living. The biggest strength and security of any country lies in educating its youth, and even more so by molding their character, propounds a school of thought, wherein lies the answers to many of the social ills that plague today's world. Nestled in the district of Anantapur in Andhra Pradesh is the Sri Sathya Sai University. This university is perhaps one of the few institutions in the world where the system of learning imparts life's biggest and most value-based lessons while preparing to meet and even surpass the challenges of today's market demands and work environment.
I came here about 16 years ago after retirement, mainly to teach in an honorary capacity. But as it has turned out, I have ended up learning more than what I have taught. And all this thing that I have learned has come by listening carefully to Baba's discourses on the one hand and watching him very carefully in action, that is. And it is from Baba that I learned that the only effective way in which the problems of the world can be solved, problems of the world today can be solved, is through love, selfless love, not ordinary love, and sacrifice. Driven by market forces, education in India is becoming privatized and very expensive, obscenely expensive, I would say. Now there are forecasts that in a few decades from now, we would be having 500 million young people in India. That's an very large number, much more than the population of the United States today, 500 million. And one expert has said 500 young people is a great asset if they can all be educated and they are employable. But if they are not educated, we have a huge time bomb on our hands. That is something we must realize. And how do we deal with this problem? That is what Baba has demonstrated through his university. First of all, education in his university is free all the way. And even more important is the stress on education.
Here, emphasis is on value-based education and character building of its students, as much as, if not more than, academic excellence. Steadfast in its belief and practice, this educational system fostered at the Sri Sathya Sai University is well on its way to awaken those in spiritual slumber with a gentle nudge, so that they understand the goal of education is certainly not limited to what is taught through textbooks in the classrooms. Often described as an embodiment of the purest form of love, Sri Sathya Sai Baba has made it his mission for man to recognize his own divinity and rekindle love, the basis for the 5 timeless human values that lie latent in every human, regardless of race or religion. Millions of people around the world are drawn to him and his universal messages. His messages encapsulate profound philosophies that are easy to understand, more importantly, imbibe. Bhagavan Baba, or Swami as he is addressed around the world, has transformed the lives of needy millions by undertaking massive humanitarian service projects. Born on November 23, 1926, in a remote village called Puttaparthi in Andhra Pradesh in South India, Bhagavan Baba gives a great deal of importance to education. But more than that, he lays considerable significance to the manner in which it ought to be delivered. As the Chancellor of this university, Sri Satya Sai Baba, often says, education is not for mere living, it is for life, a fuller, more meaningful, a more worthwhile life. There is no harm if it is for a gainful employment, but the education must realize that existence is not all, that gainful employment is not all. What the world needs today is educare. The unique approach to integrate modern education with human values through educare makes his contribution the most outstanding to the world of knowledge and learning. So what is educare?
Educare aims at the transformation of man. The word educare, if you look at the dictionary, you will find that the word educe expresses the meaning of educare most appropriately. To elicit, to draw out from what is rudimentary or potential existence. The potential has to be allowed to blossom forth fully. The assumption is that each and every human being has a divine spark in him, and this divine potentiality has to be tapped and brought out into the open. This is the main principle of educare. The distinction between education and educare, as the Chancellor of the university always puts it across, is education is for living and educare is for life. Education, in the sense in which the term was used by great prophets like Vivekananda, meant educare only. He also said that education aims at bringing out the divine potential within man. But over a period of time, it came associated with degrees, regarded as a passport for acquiring jobs, degrees. That is why a distinction is made between educare and education. And this apart, educare is an integral part of Bhagavan Satya Sai Baba's philosophy, is to ensure that they develop an integrated outlook, realize the underlying unity among all religions, inculcate the 5 human values, and become ideal citizens. This is how we try to bring it, this is how we try to work out, and for that, the methods adopted by us are: 1, we integrate the individual subjects with the concept of educare, biosciences and educare, physics and educare, we have brought out material on that, economics and human values. Second, we have a course, we call it awareness course, at the graduate and postgraduate levels. The emphasis there is on transformation of man, education in human values, science and spirituality, and global unity. Then we have the cultural programs which enable them to imbibe all these great values of Indian tradition and culture. End of education, according to Chancellor, emphasizes it repeatedly. The end of education is character. So we want good human beings. That is the final product that we expect. But a good human being does not mean that he is devoid of skills. And that is where the system of education here also comes into the picture. We attach a great deal of importance to hostel life. The student is taught how to undertake minor works, how to be self-reliant in the hostel. They run their own cooperative stores, for instance. So, personal skills, ethical skills, professional skills, they are all made to develop that as a part of the system. And therefore, the expectation is that the final product is not only a good human being, but also a human being who possesses all these skills.
I come from the financial world. I currently work for a bank, and as you know, a bank deals with money. So we deal with money belonging to people. We advise people on how to manage their money well. So I currently work for the training department of my bank, where I get an opportunity to share with people who attend my sessions certain lessons which I've learned from Swami. Whenever you talk of money, one thing which comes to my mind is what Swami talks about money. He says, in fact, not directly about money, he talks about education. He says that education is for life and not just for a living. In fact, he says education is for life and not for a living. But the way I have understood the statement is this. I believe Swami is saying education is for life and not just for a living. Admitted, living is important, making a living is important. You can't talk spirituality on an empty stomach. And I've heard Swami mention in his discourses that wealth is the basis of this world. So money is required for anybody, but the way I've understood it, Swami is saying that life is the superset and living is just a subset. While living is important, making a living is important, there is a larger purpose to education, and that is life as a whole. When it comes to money, I think the more critical question is not whether it's required or not, but how much of it is required and what use you put money to. Now, coming to the question of how much you require, I think the best equation is given by Swami himself. In his inimitable style, he says that how much money a person requires is like your shoe size. For instance, I can't have a shoe which is too tight because that's going to pinch me. At the same time, I can't have a shoe which is too big because that way I'm going to keep tripping and falling over. So to be comfortable, you need to have the exact size, exactly what you require, and that's what Swami talks about money. There are a lot of challenges that you could face when you make this statement publicly or adopt this stance. For instance, I'll share with you an experience which my senior had to go through. He was attending an interview when he was asked to talk about his educational background. He did talk about his university. He had graduated from Sathya Sai University, and they asked him what the motto of the university was. Now he said that one of the principles which the university strongly believed in was that education is for life as a whole and not just for a living. So education has a larger purpose. Now, when he made the statement, the interviewer asked him a very interesting question, in fact, a very challenging question. He asked him, if education is not for a living, then why are you here? Why are you here attending an interview, looking for a lucrative job? Now, I still remember the answer which my senior gave. I think he hit the nail on the head. Instead of answering the question directly, he asked his interviewer permission to ask him a question in turn. So my senior asks the interviewer this question. He said, sir, suppose you are a schoolmaster and let's assume there are two students in your class, and there was one student who wouldn't do his homework, who would shirk his work always. And if you'd asked him why he did not do his homework, he would say, sir, there are a lot of more important things in life than just studies. And let's assume there's one more boy in the class who is very talented, does his homework well, tops the class. And this boy comes and tells you, sir, yes, I've scored well in my tests, I'm doing well in my studies, but there are a lot of things which are more important in life than just studies. Now, both of them have made the same statement, but which of these statements would you give greater weightage to? Which person's words would you give greater weightage to? When this question was asked to the interviewer, he said, undoubtedly, I would give weightage to the boy who's performed and who still says that there are a lot of more important things in life than just studies. So when this was mentioned, the senior smiled and said, "This is exactly what we also mean when we say education is for life and not just for a living. When we say this, if this has to carry some weightage, I'll have to be first successful in the parameters which the world considers, or the parameters used by the general world to measure success. And in spite of me being successful in my career, if I still adopt the stance that there's a larger purpose to education, that's when my statement carries weightage." So this is one common challenge which comes up whenever you talk about education being for life and not just for a living. And I think this is the answer to that question.
Sri Satya Sai University grew out of the colleges started by Bhagavan Baba in the town of Anantapur in the state of Andhra Pradesh 40 years ago. Development of a sterling character being the primary objective, 2 more colleges were started in Brindavan near Bangalore, Karnataka, and in Prashanti Nilayam in Puttaparthi. As the years rolled by, these colleges attained the status of a university with A++ rating in the country that offer unique experiences in an environment that fills the head with ideals, nurtures the heart, and trains the hands to help the needy in the society. Apart from the fact that education is imparted free of cost from kindergarten all the way through to the postgraduate and the professional program level, students also receive free health care. The state-of-the-art techniques used for teaching and research, using English as the medium of instruction, character and qualifications of teachers, development of scientific research at the doctoral level that is relevant to local and national needs, make this university a crest jewel among educational institutions in the country and abroad. The installation of a modern space theatre speaks volumes of the importance Bhagavan Baba gives to academic excellence. But he also implores the students to convert knowledge into a tool useful to society.
That's the lesson which I use when I talk about financial planning. Now I have the responsibility of training people for an exam. And after passing the exam, people would advise customers on managing their investments. Now, there when I talk about financial planning, I start with this slide. I say money is not for money's sake. Money is only for meeting various goals in life. And investments are a planned means by which the goals can be achieved. So the first 2 sentences, if you see, is a modified version of what Swami says when he talks about ceiling on desires. The most important thing here is that if you have a very clear goal, if you clearly lay down your financial goals and assign an amount to it and a timeline to it, you are essentially laying a ceiling on your desires. Now, it helps them to answer a lot of important questions related to investments. For instance, when do I take my money out of an investment? Even mundane questions like that get answered. At the same time, it takes them a step closer to the spirit, because unconsciously what they're doing is they are imposing a ceiling on their desires.
Right throughout our 2-year MBA course, Swami used to tell this in almost all the discourses to us, to all management students. And today in corporate life, the art of listening to the voice of the customer, listening to the voice of the employee, understanding the corporate culture and understanding the body language of people is so extremely important in order for us to succeed. Today, if you look at the corporate honchos like Narayan Murthy or Jack Welch or whoever it is across the IT world, everyone tells about the importance of listening to people and then reacting. And I feel that this is lesson number 1, which is of great use to us in corporate life. And Swami has always been a living example of that. The lesson that Swami used to always tell us was grassroots experience. Swami always felt that, the moment we finish our MBAs, he didn't want us to be entirely egoistic. He felt that the moment you join any job in corporate life, he said it's very important to understand the nitty-gritty and understand the basics of every job that we do. And he used to be always telling us that don't have this MBA as a degree, don't have any ego around it. Focus on the job and always go to experienced people and learn from them. And that grassroots experience will take us a long way in life.
Miraculous transformation of the heart happens while being in this university environment, where the students learn their first lesson in love as well as service, when put simply, is love in action. A significant contributor to the transformation of their hearts comes from Grama Seva, initiated in 2000 by Bhagavan Baba. While one aspect of learning outside the classroom sensitizes these students to human suffering, the hands-on training in delivering compassionate and loving service toward the poor and the needy in the society sows the seeds of love and compassion in their hearts and imparts a valuable lesson on sealing on desires and social responsibility, while at the same time rekindling the awareness of oneness of man. Through Grama Seva, these students understand that love and service are the two sides of the same page that deal with a lesson in spirituality, and adhering to values is not something that is meant to be appended to one's life whenever convenient, but meant to be integrated into their lives. The students undergo a paradigm shift in their attitude and their thought process, approaching life with a broader understanding, deeper insight,